These are the exciting pro stock cars of drag racing. They're the ultimate hot rods, pure race cars in a stock body that can reach over 180 miles an hour in the quarter mile. With highly sophisticated 1,500 horsepower engines, they're the fastest gasoline-powered vehicles in the sport. This is Parker Avenue, and it's not just another street in Pomona. What makes it unique is it's the home of the NHRA World Finals. Hi, I'm Dave Bowman, and in a little while there's going to be 1,500 horsepower pro stockers who will be out here duking it out to find out who's going to reign supreme in this year's World Finals. One of the most respected competitors in pro stock racing is the Hearst Oldsmobile team of Warren Johnson. Johnson, as both the driver and the owner, heads up a family team that has had a successful year. Early in the season in Gainesville, Florida, only the second stop on the tour, he defeated five-time world champion Bob Glidden to win the Gator Nationals. In Baton Rouge at the Cajun Nationals, he again met Glidden in the final round and ran the victory, beating the man the record books show as the sport's winningest racer. At the very next national event, the Spring Nationals in Columbus, Ohio, Warren Johnson again took home the title and the prize money by advancing to the final round, this time defeating Bruce Allen. Over the course of the season, the team has run well enough to earn sufficient valuable points for a sure second place in the World Championship title race. But the last half of the season has been disappointing. Times have been tough and mechanical problems have plagued the Johnson team. Though they've placed in the money many times, they've had no victories since Columbus. Now at the World Finals, the last race of the year, the Johnson team works not toward a World Championship, but to win one last race, to vindicate themselves for the last half of the season, and to carry them through the winter as they prepare for next year. But they're bucking the odds. They've run these engines hard and they've had trouble getting replacement parts, so they've had to go back to the old combination.
We're back to our standard combination as opposed to before. The motor is actually the same motor we ran back in 1983 because we've had just a horrendous problem this year with part supply. We're basically run without any parts the whole year. We started off well because our parts were fresh at the beginning of the year, and we haven't had any new parts basically from the beginning of the season.
Warren Johnson is as much of an automotive engineer as a racer. He designed the big block engine that he and other pro stock racers campaigning Oldsmobiles now use. And his belief that if you rely on others, you're relying on outdated knowledge, has led him to design and farm out the fabrication of his own components in an effort to always be first with a better idea, as well as first at the finish line. Warren's son, Kurt, is the crew chief, in charge of the engine as well as overseeing operations at the track. Wife Arlene keeps statistics, crucial to analyzing and maximizing the car's performance. Dropping in for this race is Bruce Daly, an old friend. Although he's a bank vice president now, Bruce has done some racing of his own, and an extra pair of hands will be helpful in such a small team. Though the last half of the season has not gone the way they wanted, for this close-knit family team, racing is more than just a championship title. It's the challenge of constantly pushing for maximum performance. And there's still a race to be won, the World Final. A victory that would be doubly sweet after such a frustrating season. On Saturday, the crew is up early preparing the car for the last full day of qualifying. The Pro Stock car is an exotic racing machine. The normally aspirated and carbureted 500 cubic inch engines approach an unheard of 3 horsepower per cubic inch. This kind of performance comes only from extensive development work on a dyno. During the winter, Warren and Kurt and the employees of their race shop must search for more horsepower. At the track, only minor adjustments are made, and the car and the engine tuned for specific conditions. Kurt and Warren work instinctively and separately so as to not duplicate each other's efforts.
He knows what his duties are, I know what my duties are, so there's a lot of work that goes on with without speaking of any individual operation that has to be done. It's almost like a rote process where everybody does their own job without talking about it. And we have confidence in each other, so we don't have to go ask whether something has been done or it hasn't been done. I mean, we don't worry about it being done right, because that's our approach. You do it right the first time.
Warren's a tough boss, and his standards are high, but in his own quiet way, Kurt respects that.
Full time, I've been doing it since I got out of high school, since I graduated, which is about 4 years now, and I've been traveling across the country for ever since I was about 2 foot tall, it seems like.
Where have you learned all your mechanical skills?
Pretty much through my dad. He taught me almost everything he knows. I took auto shop right behind our house in Ridley, Minnesota.
What was it like growing up in a shop and working with your dad all through these years?
Well, it had its advantages and disadvantages. You know, working for your father, you're probably expected to do more, but I survived.
Kurt's dry humor disguises the fact that for him, racing is not just a family business. It's a passion.
Kurt was a good student in school, and he was always a straight-A student, but if he didn't keep up his grades, he couldn't go to the races with us, and so he'd miss as much as 9 weeks of school when in a school year, going to the races with us, and he still maintained an A average.
Kurt works steadily and surely, preparing the engine for the day's first round. Working alone at the track, even under the time pressure, can be easier than being back at a shop where he's still just the boss's son.
When you're working in a basically, I guess you'd call it a small business, it's kind of a touchy situation where you have other employees involved. You don't want to have a situation where they think someone is showing favoritism or anything like that, so he's really allowed to advance on his ability strictly only. We don't look at it as family ties as promoting him in this business at all. It's his ability that promotes himself. It's tough working for your father sometimes, you know. People in the shop, you know, think that, well, you know, you got it made or something like that, but that's just not the way it is.
Warren, Kurt, and Bruce roll the car into the staging lanes to await their turn. Hopefully all their work will result in this run being fast enough to not only qualify them better, but to show some improved performance. Arlene is already near the starting line, making detailed notes on the competition and the changing track conditions. Warren, now in the car, puts on his safety belt. On the starting line, Kurt paces anxiously. Kurt waves his father forward for a burnout as the previous pair make their qualifying run. As Warren does his burnout, he approaches the exact spot Kurt has marked for the start. The confidence father and son have in each other is obvious. Arlene has moved in from the sidelines with her video camera to tape Warren's run for later analysis. It's a good run, 7.63 seconds, and Warren's fastest so far, but not enough to improve their standing. And they could tell they'll have to do something about the clutch.
Well, what are we going to put in there to race with? Can't put a clutch in every run. I mean, you could. Put that one in there that we built back to where we were. I'll check the finger heights on it. I'd rather leave this one in there for routine. I'll even take it out and take a look at it and see what it looks like.
As the boys analyze the clutch problem, Arlene takes readings on barometric pressure, temperature, and other statistics, and enters them into the computer. Then she plays the videotape for Warren. All this high-tech shows how times have changed.
When he started racing, we drove our car to the track 200 miles, changed rear end, axles, tires, ran a whole day's race, and then changed all that back and drove it back home 200 miles.
Drove the car that you
Drove
raced?
the car that we raced. It was a 57 Chevy. I always thought it was just going to be probably a hobby. You know, we'd go out on weekends, and it was just a fun thing. We'd camp, and there'd be several of us that would go. We've met a lot of friends at the racetrack. Keep in touch with them. You know, we'd see them all season long, and then at Christmas we all send cards back and forth. And, well, we see each other every other week. so it's more like home here than it is back at home. I mean, that is your life. Regardless of what else you do, your lifestyle is all circled around racing.
The bell housing and transmission are on the ground. The clutch is being taken off. Warren will have to totally rebuild the clutch before the next round.
I don't think we can go much faster than we are right now, or quicker either. We haven't got any blocks and heads to do any engine development, so therefore we're stagnant on the power level. And the chassis, we can't change that anymore. This type of body, there's probably 3 or 4 of these cars out there, and we're by far the quickest and the fastest, but we just can't go any quicker than we are right now, at least that we know how. Maybe someone else could do it, but the way we're using the clutch and hitting the chassis so hard, we've got a clutch life expectancy of about 4 to 5 runs maximum. It's basically what it's amounted to is you're using a 1930 style clutch that was designed for 70 horsepower, and we're feeding over 1,000 horsepower to it, and we've just got to change it to a different style clutch, and we'll probably end up manufacturing a clutch ourselves if we can't find something to do the job.
Everything in this motor we made ourselves at our shop. The only thing we didn't do is grind the crank and then grind the camshaft. As you can see, we got our own intake design. We keep it covered up so nobody can know what direction we're going in. You know, if we make a incredible gain here and somebody sees that we have our intake manifold changed in a different area, you know, they can go in that direction and maybe pick up, so we keep it covered up.
Once more, they roll the race car into the lanes to wait their turn for the last qualifying run before race day. The Johnsons have time to chat with friends and competitors. They're relaxed and confident. But this run is their last chance to move up in the standings.
It's a very important run, seeing as though we're qualified number 5. In the number 5 position, assuming everything goes the way the ladder says, we'd end up running the number 1 car in the second round. And the number 1 car has a little bit of a performance advantage right now. So if we move up, say in the number 4 spot, we wouldn't have to run the number 1 car until the final round anyways.
Warren runs the quarter mile in 7.68 seconds, 5 100ths of a second slower than the morning run. The change of clutch has produced no benefit. They remain qualified 5th. Back in the pits, Kurt immediately sets about checking the engine, and Warren automatically ties the printer into the onboard computer, looking for some area to improve for tomorrow's race. Sunday, the last day of the World Finals, and a capacity crowd awaits the racing. Warren, Kurt, and Bruce push the car into the staging lanes. Once more, the waiting begins. Psychologically, the first round is the toughest. As Kurt checks the car, Warren thinks back to the morning preparations. Mechanically, everything was in order. Kurt checked on that. Even the Autolite rep came by to lend some technical assistance. The valves were set. The timing was done. Everything has been done Warren's way. Done once and done right. While he waits, Warren watches the funny cars run, carefully looking for changing track conditions. It's almost time for the pro stop, and Warren returns to his car. The stands are full. As the crowds cheer the first pair of pro stocks at the starting line, Warren and Kurt compare notes about the track surface.
A couple of funny cars got crossed up in that left lane after that oil dome by Garlett's.
Probably down in the right lane.
Sure, I thought it was in the left. But that's the way we're running up and down.
Kurt will watch the first race from his usual spot behind the cars, and Arlene will videotape as always. Warren faces Stan Mizell. Only 1/1000th of a second difference in their reaction. But Johnson pulls ahead for a clean win with an elapsed time of 7.655 seconds. Arlene immediately returns to the sidelines to make notes on the next pair of Pro Stockers approaching the line. Bob Glidden lines up against Gene Fashing. Fashing starts almost a 1/10 of a second faster. But Glidden easily wins, running 7.602 seconds. Back in the pits, Kurt is already retrieving the information from the onboard computer as Arlene and Warren go over her notes.
Glidden played the waiting game. Fashing was staged, and Glidden sat there and finally pulled in.
Once the information is digested, the team knows what to do. Warren checks the valves. Kurt checks the rear end and adjusts the chassis. Bruce mounts a new set of rear slicks, and the car goes back together. This time, they're up against Bob Glidden, 5-time world champion and the top qualifier.
Warren's ET was a 765.5 at 179.21, and he had a 4.44 reaction time. And Glidden had a 5.12, so going into the second round, Warren had a better reaction time. Glidden gets lane choice. He had a 760 ET, and Warren had a 765, so by 500ths, Glidden gets lane choice for the next round.
In the lanes, Warren's demeanor is different. No nervous tension, no socializing. Instead, he's lost in concentration. The waiting that might be torture to someone else is an opportunity for his engineer's mind to re-sift and analyze the data, find his opponent's weak spot, gain an advantage, and win. The second round of eliminations are underway at the NHRA World Finals as the funny cars battle before the capacity crowd. Around the corner, out of the limelight, the Pro Stocks sit ready. Warren Johnson is focusing his thoughts on how to win this round. As Kurt and Bruce check last-minute details, Warren analyzes the situation. He'll be up against a 5-time world champion, Bob Glidden. He's beaten Glidden head-to-head twice this year. Kurt has squeezed a maximum from their Hurst Olds, but the parts are worn, and they've had to rebuild the clutch. Glidden holds the event's fastest speed and the lowest elapsed time. Warren knows there's only one factor that can equalize them now: reaction time. Warren must be as quick off the green light as possible. He must actually anticipate the green and get the jump on Glidden, but if he leaves too early, he'll get the red light, a foul, and automatically be disqualified. They didn't have lane choice, and to make matters worse, this lane was just oiled down by the previous car. Kurt makes absolutely sure the cleanup is complete and the lane surface meets his satisfaction. Kurt knows the pressure is on the driver now, and he does all he can to make this run a smooth one.
When he gets up there, all I want him to do is drive it. The car's got to be all complete together. There's nothing that he don't have to worry about. Making sure the air's right in the tires or the wheelie bars are adjusted. You know, I don't want him to worry about anything like that. Just go up there and drive it.
Arlene is not going to videotape this run. It's too important a moment, and she doesn't want to be limited by the narrow field of view. Both Arlene and Kurt watch, hoping Warren can cut the light clean enough to get an edge on Glidden. Warren's red lighted. They race full out, but Glidden wins automatically because of Warren's foul start. Arlene's disappointment is immediately hidden by her gracious reaction toward Etta Glidden.
Congratulations. The year's almost out again.
Congratulations and condolences. WJ.
The way it goes. That's right.
Kurt must deal with his emotions differently. He isolates himself, standing silently at the starting line, surrounded by the noise of the other pro stock competitors that he won't get to race until next season. Back at the trailer, Warren doesn't let his frustration interfere with the need to learn from this experience. He and Arlene go over the notes. Then, as he does after every run, he watches the onboard computer spit out information that in this case will be useful in preparing the new car they will build for next year. The World Finals, and this season may be over, but this is also a beginning, the beginning of the winter research and development months, and a new season. For the hidden heroes of the Warren Johnson team, I'm Dave Bowman.